Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to this channel, I'm going to leave some links in the description. I got a whole playlist and a bunch of other links, and it will help you understand more of what I'm talking about in this video, but it really is just a follow-up of many of these videos that I have been documenting about. And what I document and talk about is this ancient knowledge practices. And if you understand ancient knowledge information such as Kabbalah that has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. And there's other pieces of ancient knowledge stuff that goes along with it. But if you understand these things, you can start to see more of what this world truly entails and how everything in this world is somehow interrelated, and you can just get a better understanding of what is truly going on in the world. And recently I've been talking about this duck theme again and how it's connected to Saturday Night Live. And I always use this word synchronicity. What synchronicity is, for example, in this video, I was at my friend Cody's house and I was telling him about this duck theme that I was following, and I went to the bathroom and went pee, and he started watching the TV, and the coach of the Mighty Ducks came out on the stage on Jimmy Fallon's show. And that's what synchronicity is, when you're talking about something and then it happens. There was another thing that happened today when my daughter made me this bracelet that said hey on it, but I thought it said ya because she spelled hey wrong, H-A-Y, and I thought it said ya, and I said something about it. My mom said, no, it means hey. And right when she said that, the TV said, hey! So that's what synchronicity is. And a lot of what I talk about on this channel is what is called synchromysticism. I just found out about this term about a month ago or something. And that's basically finding the meaning within these synchronicities that are going on. And they literally, my life is just a walking synchronicity. Every single day, all day long, I have these synchronicity things, and when I look them up, you understand more of what's going on with it. So anyway, all of that being said, yesterday I had to work all day, and then right when I got off work, I had to go about an hour away to my nephew's birthday party, and we didn't get home until about midnight. And I finally sat down, and the first thing I did was I got on my computer and I went to CNN, and I noticed these were the headlines. One about Saturday Night Live. And literally, if you just go, the night before I made this video talking about the duck theme and how it was synced up to Saturday Night Live. And there's also this other story about this family who drove off a cliff, and it was last year in 2018. And the reason that's important is because when I made a video on this story, I talked about how it was connected to Owen Hart and Bret Hart, the wrestlers. And we also got a story yesterday about a fan rushing the stage during Bret Hart's Hall of Fame speech, right? So we get a Bret Hart story, and then the media puts a story about this Hart family yet again. And I'll explain a little bit more, but, you know, I notice all of this, and right when I notice it, I hear the TV say, fuck a duck. And the movie Inglourious Bastards is playing on my TV. So right when I notice these two stories that are important to what I've been talking about, the TV says, fuck a duck. Like, so, once again, connected to some duck theme and synced up to Saturday Night Live. So I'll come back to the Saturday Night Live story here in a minute, but I want to talk about why this story coming back up in the media is important on the same day that Bret Hart had a fan rush the stage during his speech just before WrestleMania 35. And Saturday Night Live, this is important to wrestling too, with synchronicity, because this guy, Jason, however you say his name, Sudeikis, or I don't know how to say his name, whatever. But when you look this guy up, you find out that He's actually the nephew of the guy who plays Norm on Cheers. And once again, if you go watch some of these videos, I just talked about how the TV show Cheers was important and synchronicity with the TV show Cheers and Woody Harrelson and whatnot. And I was like, that's pretty interesting that this guy's name is Norm Peterson, or, this is the nephew of the guy who plays Norm Peterson on Cheers, because one of my best friends, his nickname is Norm, and he is the biggest wrestling fan I know. Absolutely the biggest wrestling fan. He even went to school for radio broadcasting in hopes that someday he could work for the WWE and whatnot. And I haven't seen him in a while because he lives in Minnesota, but I was in his wedding last in August of 2017, and we call him Norm, right? And it's based off of Norm from Cheers, but also his dad is from Norman, Oklahoma. And if you type out his real name in Gematria, it equals 516, which if you go back to this video right here, that was the big number that I was talking about with Saturday Night Live and the Mighty Ducks and all of this synchronicity that is going on. So even the Saturday Night Live thing is important to, the WWE. And if you recall, so back when this story happened, the reason it's so important was it happened just before WrestleMania 34, and we also had the story of a school shooting, and this was just after Sandy Hook, or Stoneman Douglas, remember, and they said the kid who shot the school was Austin Wyatt Rollins, which reminds us of, wrestlers, right? Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Austin Wyatt Rollins. And then we got the story of the Hart family driving off a cliff. And then this was all around the same time as the Austin bomber as well. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, in the Austin bombing, we were told that Mark Henry, the WWE wrestler, knew one of the victims. And what was so important was that before Owen Hart, the wrestler, died, he wrestled Mark Henry at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And then later that year, he died at a pay-per-view called Over the Edge. Over the Edge, think about it. And the Hart family drives over the edge of the cliff. And I'll explain a little bit more, but the reason it's important to Steve Austin in Austin, Texas, with Mark Henry is because Owen Hart is also the reason that Stone Cold Steve Austin had to retire from wrestling because of a botched pile driver. And Stone Cold Steve Austin had to leave to get surgery, and it was 5 months and 23 days after 5/23, which is the day that Owen Hart died in history, right? Which that is the 99th prime number, 523. Owen Hart just so happened to die 99 days after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where he wrestled Mark Henry. And then he died on 5/23, right? The 99th prime number. Mark Henry's birthday was 9 months and 9 days before the Austin bomber supposedly killed himself as well. And also, if you write out the word cliff in Gematria, cliff equals 99. There was a whole bunch of 99 stuff that was going on with the story. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I wrote in so many things in here. It was all about 99. And the cop in the story, his name was even Sergeant Bret Barnum. And look what Bret Hart's name is. Bret Sergeant Hart. And Bret Hart was even the trainer of Mark Henry, the wrestler, too. Bret Hart trained Mark Henry, the guy who knew victim in the Austin bombing. So what are the odds of that? And also Mark Henry and Goldberg were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame last year, right? And Goldberg was really important to the Duck theme, right? The Mighty Ducks goalie is Goldberg, the goalie. Talked about all of this last summer, and We even got the duck boat drowning, and then we got Goldberg the goalie being arrested. If you watch the previous videos, it'll make a lot more sense. He's even important to Hulk Hogan because he's the wrestler who beat the NWO, right? The New World Order with Hollywood Hogan. He supposedly had a 173-0 streak, and he lost on his 174th fight. And New World Order equals 174. He came into wrestling on the 174th day of the year. He lost the title to the New World Order. He's the person who beat the New World Order, but he lost that title 174 days, I believe, after he won the title, right? Or maybe it was his birthday. I can't remember, but it was 174 days later. If you're at Hollywood Hogan, it equals 174. And a lot of this is seemingly connected to these dates that I'm talking about of August 10th and August 11th. And August 11th just so happens to be Hulk Hogan's birthday, and it's also the mayor of San Francisco's birthday. I'll explain a little bit more as we move along here, but it is important to Ronda Rousey and why she came into wrestling during the Royal Rumble that was synced up to Roddy Piper and so on. And Roddy Piper, he has the same gematria as Saturday Night Live even, 215. Saturday Night Live even equals 810 in satanic gematria. But think about Stone Cold Steve Austin. And we also had the mail package bomber in October last year, and his name was Caesar Sayok. And the Austin bomber, his name was Mark Anthony Condit. And it reminded us of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, right? And Julius Caesar died on the Ides of March. And think about what happened on the Ides of March this year. We got the school shooting that was in New Zealand. And if you go back to my old videos here, and it was in Christchurch, New Zealand, of all places. And if you type out Christchurch on here, on Valentine's Day of 2000, I believe it was 16, I documented about this cliff collapse, an earthquake that collapsed a cliff in Christchurch, New Zealand, right? And think about this, these people driving over the cliff, right? And then I'm talking about all of this earthquake symbolism. On the Ides of March, we get the shooting at the Christchurch Mosque, right? And last year on the Ides of March, we got the FIU bridge collapse, if you remember. Remember the FIU bridge collapse? Something I was talking about all year in connection with the Eagles being in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl and so on. And that bridge collapse just so happened to happen on the 44th birthday of the 44th mayor of San Francisco. And he became the mayor 4 months and 4 days before the anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge opening. And the word earthquake equals 44. And London Breed, the current mayor of San Francisco, her birthday is August 11th, the same as Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan got his revenge against Earthquake at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. And that's the building that has the black cube on the top. That's important to the New Jerusalem, which is why August 10th and 11th are important this year to Tisha B'Av, the Jewish festival, or the Jewish remembrance of the destruction of the two temples. And it's all about bringing in the third temple and Donald Trump. So it's really important. And Hulk Hogan got his revenge against Earthquake at SummerSlam. And if you look up the SummerSlam this year, it just so happens to be on August 11th, 8/11, Hulk Hogan's birthday. Also, what was so interesting is Donald Trump in satanic gematria equals 523. Once again, the 99th prime number. And he, in one time, was in wrestling, remember? And he got a Stone Cold Stunner from Steve Austin the same year that we got the Minnesota Bridge collapse. And that's why it was important that the Eagles won the Super Bowl in Minnesota in the 612 area code. And, you know, Valentine equals 612. Mark Henry's birthday was 612. And so on, right? Sandy Hook Can't remember it all. It's all the school shootings. They all had to do with 612, right? And Revelation 6:12 talks about the great earthquake. So, it's really synced up. Ronda Rousey came into the WWE at the Royal Rumble. And think about that in regards to earthquakes. And then last year we had the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. And then later that year in Saudi Arabia, we had the Crown Jewel pay-per-view in wrestling, right? Think about Royal Rumble, earthquake, also the royal family. And, it's all synced up to bridge collapses. Also, if you go back to what I was talking about with Ronda Rousey and Roddy Piper, I'll leave a link in the description because there's just so much to re-explain. But I knew that Ronda Rousey was going to do something with Roddy Piper because he died just after Ronda Rousey had won in 34 seconds on the date of 8/1. And that's important to the Minnesota bridge collapse that happened on 8/1 and fell 81 feet and took him 81 minutes to transport everyone to the hospital. And Golden Gate Bridge equals 81 in frontwards and backwards gematria. And currently, it's been open for 81 years even, until May 27th this year. But this big number with bridges, 8/1. Even the Super Bowl synced up to Francis Scott Key as well and kneeling during the national anthem. And his birthday is August 1st. Also, Mark Antony, the guy who became the leader after Julius Caesar, he died on 8/1, I believe, or maybe he was born on 8/1, one or the other. He was born or died on 8/1. This really important thing, but when Roddy Piper died, just before he died, Hulk Hogan got in trouble for racist comments, and then the band Disturbed had released this song called The Vengeful One, and they did a play on the TV, or the movie called They Live, with Roddy Piper in it, where they go and shoot up the news people. And just after Roddy Piper died, we got the Bridgewater shooting. Remember the Bridgewater shooting in Virginia, Monetta, Virginia? And they shot up the news, right? So we got a news shooting just after Roddy Piper died. I also talked about how he was on the TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a lot of stuff synced up to Philadelphia. And anyway, the reason that's important to what I'm talking about here, remember the kid Austin Wyatt Rollins? The shooting that school that he shot up was in Maryland. And then later last year, we got the Maryland newspaper shooting, right? There was a Maryland newspaper shooting, and it was at 888 Best Gate Road. And Royal Rumble equals 888 in gematria. And so do a lot of things that I'm talking about, but Royal Rumble equals 888. Triple H, the wrestler, think about it. H is the 8th letter, 888. He's important because in WrestleMania 31 that was in San Francisco, he had this beef with The Rock, who is also from the San Francisco Bay Area. And The Rock didn't want to hit a woman, so he brought out Ronda Rousey to hit Triple H's wife, Stephanie McMahon. And then when Ronda Rousey came in to the WWE in 2018 at the Royal Rumble, they made the big match for WrestleMania 34 against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, right? So it's important to all this. And Triple H, when he came out dressed as the Terminator at WrestleMania 31 that was in San Francisco, they did a whole thing from the movie Terminator where there's a big car wreck on the Golden Gate Bridge. So it's just no doubt they made that Austin Wyatt Rollins story in Maryland, and then later that year we got a news shooting, the news people being shot up in Maryland, reminding us of Roddy Piper, reminding us of all of this stuff that was going on with Ronda Rousey and how she's synced up to it. Also, all this came 4 months and 4 days before August 10th this year, 8/10, which is a Saturday, which is interesting in regards to Saturday Night Live, considering Tisha B'Av begins at nighttime on August 10th, Saturday, the night that the band Slipknot is playing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time. And I've talked about how it synced up to Donald Trump saying he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair and in a helicopter and whatnot. And we had Shane McMahon's helicopter crash that was all synced up to Donald Trump and saying that. We also, just before the crown jewel last year in Saudi Arabia, we had the Leicester soccer team owner die in a helicopter crash that was synced up to Shane McMahon and so on. Also, we had the Sully. Remember Jamal Khashoggi? That was big back in October, right? Jamal Khashoggi. His name equals 612 in Gematria. And just after we got that story of him dying, we got another story about these two Saudi Arabian girls dying in the Hudson River. And it was reminding us of the movie Sully, right? And the Miracle on the Hudson. And that movie came out on 9/9. And I believe we got the story, what was it? I'm trying to think. We got the story like 9 months and 9 days after the anniversary of the Miracle on the Hudson, of these two Saudi Arabia girls drowning in the Hudson. And this number I was talking about, all with Queen Elizabeth. And think about that with the crown jewel and how it was synced up to Queen Elizabeth possibly dying. And then we had George Bush's birthday. George H.W. Bush was born on 6/12, the same day that Donald Trump visited Kim Jong-un and whatnot. And remember when George Bush died, a big story in the news was about his dog missing him, his dog named Sully. And it's because of this. It's because of all of these interrelated events that I am talking about. Also, in regards to the royal family, when Stone Cold did his last match before he got surgery and whatnot on his neck, that was on Prince Charles's birthday, which was 5 months and 23 days after 5/23. So it's definitely significant. There's a lot more. I'm skipping over so much. I just wanted to make a quick video explaining why we got the story of that Cliff thing the same day we get a story about Bret Hart in the mainstream media, and then we get the Saturday Night Live stuff that's synced up to one of my good friends who's the biggest wrestling fan that I know. You know, we also got this story of this guy going back on the same day that Virginia made the college basketball championship, and look, he's from Fairfax, Virginia, and we were talking about how the basketball tournament was synced up to the Justin Fairfax story and all of the Virginia symbolism that was going on during Black History Month with the blackface stuff. And think about Monetta, Virginia, and the Bridgewater shooting as well with that, right? And that story was such a joke anyway. Originally they showed a picture of a white guy, and then all of a sudden he turned out to be a black guy, and none of the camera angles made any sense. But they took down everybody's video off of YouTube and whatnot of that shooting, so you can't even prove it anymore. Unless I go back and find my old video that's on a computer somewhere that got crashed and whatever else. It'd be a lot of work just to find that thing, but he's totally a white guy. So I'm also wondering about Oklahoma, because my friend, he got that name partially from Norman, Oklahoma as well. And if you go back and watch my videos, I can't remember what video it was, but just type in Sam Bradford on my YouTube channel. And I talked about how Teddy Bridgewater got injured and then Sam Bradford got traded to the Minnesota Vikings. And Sam Bradford played college at Oklahoma, but before I even knew of the Sam Bradford trade, I mentioned how earthquakes were synced up by the numbers and possibly we were going to get an earthquake. And then just hours later, I went to bed, I woke up, and there was an earthquake that had happened in Oklahoma, right? And then Sam Bradford got traded to the Minnesota Vikings. And in them videos, I mentioned the Franklin Bridge in Philadelphia and a lot about the number 150. And if you type out SNL, it equals 150 in Satanic and Jewish gematria. And if you remember when I had this synchronicity with Cheers, I was DJing at the bar Cheers, and Facebook decided to put a thing of Clay Matthews at the top of my post. Let me find it here. Maybe I better just type in Clay Matthews. But I was DJing at the bar, and my friend asked me about what days I can. Well, what in the world? I'm spelling it wrong, that's why. I was DJing at the bar, and my friend texted me about what days I had open so we could schedule some band gigs. And I went to Facebook to see what I had open, and Facebook gave me this post about Clay Matthews right here. And right behind where I was sitting, DJing at this bar Cheers, was a big thing of Clay Matthews. And I noticed Clay Matthews equals 150, just like Green Bay Packers. And I'm DJing for this, the 150th anniversary of this town that the bar is in, and the town equals 150. So, it's interesting how it syncs up that way. I just wonder if there's something to do with Oklahoma. Just the other day, too, at work, this old lady, out of nowhere, we weren't talking about anything to do with it, but she showed me this picture of the Oklahoma border sign because apparently they drove past where they were going and they ended up in Oklahoma. And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? But I just remembered it in my brain that there might be something important. Plus, 2 nights ago, before I documented about all this here, it thundered here like no other. And I heard the longest and loudest thunder I've heard in probably ever. I swear it was like, I thought like a semi wrecked outside my house. It was like the longest, loudest thunder ever. And I'm just wondering about the Oklahoma City thunder. Also in April, it's the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. But today, I noticed that the T-Wolves are playing the Thunder, and the T-Wolves are really important, I've been talking about this too. So, just makes me wonder if there's something important to Oklahoma coming up within the mainstream media. Also, then I just want to finish this video by talking about what had happened. So, this morning, my daughter needed to get her ears cleaned because they're infected from the earrings, and she didn't want her mom to do it, so she went up to my mom's to do it because my mom can do it nicer or something, I guess. And I was standing there, and I just talked about this thing with August 10th and in the last video, so I wanted to take a picture of it to show that my dad has this movie Road Trip sitting on the counter. And I took the picture, and I was explaining to my mom a bunch of the stuff about the duck theme and whatever. And she's just like everyone else who just instantly shuts out and just they don't even find it interesting how these things sync up. And anyway, she made me this necklace here, Claire did, and it said YAH originally, and it was backwards, so it said Yah. And then I said, well, I was like, Yah, what does that mean? Are you calling me God or something? And it was supposed to be hey, but she was spelling it like hay for horses, and she spelled it wrong. And my mom told me that, and then all right as my mom told me that, I heard the word hay on the TV, and the movie Animal House was playing on my mom's TV. And John Belushi's in Saturday Night Live, right? So I'm like, what are the odds? And then last year we had the death of Matt Guitar Murphy that was synced up to the Indians and Cubs stuff in August 10th. And there's also, and it was the Blues Brothers too, right? And then we had Aretha Franklin, who was in the Blues Brothers, die in August. And Matt Murphy was her husband on the Blues Brothers. But I'm bringing this up because another member in the movie is Donald Duck Dunn in the movie The Blues Brothers. Also, the other day, I talked about how I had these comments on my Molly Tibbetts video, and then there was also one about Bill Murray, and now it makes more sense because Bill Murray was also famous for Saturday Night Live, before my time really, but I didn't even really put that together because I don't know that much about Saturday Night Live other than like the 90s Saturday Night Live. So it's just funny. This person left that comment. So I looked up the 810th episode of Saturday Night Live, and it just so happened to be hosted by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And then the next one was hosted by Emily Blunt. 810 and 811, these two dates that I'm talking about, right? And the reason that's significant is because these people are both the stars of the movie called Mary Poppins Returns that came out in 2018. And go look at these videos here. Look at this. I had synchronicity with Mary Poppins, and I made a whole big long video about Mary Poppins. So what are the odds? The 810th and 811th episodes of Saturday Night Live are synced up to Mary Poppins. And, it even came out on the date of 810 or 10-8. And this was the year that the Cubs hadn't won in 108 years, and so on. And that's why I said it was important that they would play the Indians, because Rocky Colavito, who cursed the Cubs, was born on 810. And the last time the Indians won the World Series, the MVP was Lou Boudreau, who died on 810 just before 9/11. So absolutely synced up. Like I said, I'm skipping over a lot. I just wanted to make a quick video to explain a little bit more before I get too far behind on it. But you can always come to my blog and read through these. I leave it in the description every single time. I know it's a lot for people to take in, but it is all interrelated. And, this number is just really important. August 10th, August 11th. I don't know if it's, I don't know. I've been talking about it for over a year. So we'll just leave it there. Like I said, I got to go do some stuff. And I wanted to make one. I really wanted to just make this video before WrestleMania begins tonight. And hopefully I can watch WrestleMania. And I'm anxious to see what's going on with it. And I'm anxious to see who is maybe hosting Saturday Night Live on August 10th. But I don't know how to find that. Maybe they haven't even announced it yet. But that's definitely some things that were going on. Then SummerSlam the next night on Hulk Hogan's birthday. Sure seems something's going down. So we'll keep following it, see what happens. Have a good one. Peace.